So obviously I'm an Australian Armenian who has ended up in Australia because of happenings in 1915 and the Turks driving out the Armenians, and my grandparents ended up being driven out of their homeland and ended up in Australia. And so I was lucky enough to study medicine here. And when I finished my medical studies, I thought that I could somehow give something back to society, and who better than my own Armenian people. So I went back to Armenia first in 2004, and there I fell in love with the country, and I realised that I would really want to come back to Armenia and work there as a doctor. So when I became a vascular surgeon, I decided to return to Armenia and see if I could somehow extend my vascular surgical services to the Armenian people. And I was lucky enough to get in touch with Lynette Shahinyan here, and she was working with Medtronic, which is a big multinational company, medical company, that then together we were able to go to Armenia in 2009 and make contact with various Armenian hospitals. So since 2010 I've been going to Nork Marash Cardiovascular Centre, where I have been very lucky to have several trainees come under my traineeship, and Edouard Darian is now more or less completed his training with me and is doing cases on his own. So I'm very proud of the fact that over a period of 10 years I've been able to train up one vascular surgeon to a very high level who can now operate on his own. Perhaps one of the most touching memories that I have of being in Armenia was a patient that I encountered, a 45-year-old man who lived in a very remote village from the north, who had 3 children and was the sole breadwinner of his family in the village. He had seen various vascular surgeons who could not offer him any help because it was beyond the expertise that they had. And he had a very large abdominal aortic aneurysm, which was 15 centimetres, and all of the vessels to his intestines were occluded, so he was basically dying in front of my eyes. And so we did an operation on him. I operated on him. It took about 14 hours, and one of my proudest moments was that I was able to get him home back to his 3 kids and his wife in the village. And if it was just that case, then I would have felt that I've achieved something. And that is one of lots of different cases that we have. And now, of course, even when I'm not there, Edouard continues on doing the work, and he is now training other vascular surgeons. So I feel that what I have started is continuing at a high level in Western medicine, in Western vascular surgery. Well, to answer that question, I think all we have to think about is how very advanced first world countries are dealing with the COVID crisis. And I think of European countries, the United States, who are supposed to have incredibly advanced, fantastic systems, who are being overrun by COVID. And these countries aren't at war. So you can imagine, one can only imagine that if you have a huge burden of COVID, plus you have wounded soldiers coming in from a war in Artsakh, that the medical system, which is very underdeveloped, would be inundated very quickly. So the Armenian medical system has been inherited from the old Soviet system. And of course, in the last 30 years, there have been many advances in the medical system. But nevertheless, there is still a lot to do to improve the medical system. There is not a Medicare system in Armenia like there is in Australia, for example. So everyone has to pay for their own medical care, apart from, of course, children and people that have disabilities. But I think that the situation is dire in Armenia because there just aren't enough resources to cope with the COVID and the war. So I'm glad you asked me that question because I have been thinking about that a lot. And of course, we are mostly all earning money and we can donate money, and I think we should all donate money to the cause. And of course, we all know about the All Armenia Fund, which is available for all Armenians to donate to. And I certainly will be donating. But I think there is a lot more responsibility on the shoulders of Armenians in the diaspora, and that is one of education, educating people. The thing that strikes me most when I talk to others about the situation is how little people know about the history of the region and how this conflict has come about and why it's come about. And also, I think very few people know about the involvement of Turkey with Azerbaijan and why that is so painful for the Armenians now. So I think what the onus is on every Armenian in the diaspora is to take time out and teach our colleagues, our friends, about the truth, about what it is to be Armenian and what the situation is in Armenia at the moment. And we can do this by showing them sharing our history with them and showing them where they can find out about our history on various websites. I also feel that Armenians now more than ever need the support of the international community. And so it's the international community that I think is going to make a big difference to the outcome of the Armenians eventually. And so I think it's very important for us to make the international community aware of what is going on in Armenia and Artsakh at the moment. I think it's very important also to realise that Armenia is heading towards a massive humanitarian crisis. They have lost hundreds and hundreds of soldiers aged between 18 and 20 or 21 years old. And so there's already a huge generation gap forming for future jobs, future families, and the future of Armenia. Also, Armenia is going to have to rebuild. Artsakh is going to have to rebuild. And we are going to need help to do that. And only the international community can provide the sort of help that is required. I think for this reason it's crucial that the whole Armenian diaspora thinks not only of the crisis that's occurring at the moment, but the aftermath of the crisis and what is going to be needed. We are going to need engineers, we're going to need doctors, nurses, we're going to need all sorts of professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, to try to bring Armenia back onto its feet again. And I have no doubt that we will, We are a culture that is more than 3,000 years old, and we have survived many, many wars, and we will survive this war. But it's going to take a huge effort from all Armenians all around the world and the whole international community.